My name is Tamirat Solomon, and I'll be presenting Invertebrate Conservation, the Invisible Taxonomy Group. And the case study that I'll be using is the western bumblebee at Schnebly-Cooley Solar Farm in Kittias County, Central Washington. We are currently undergoing a biodiversity crisis. Studies find that the extinction rate has increased by approximately 8 to 100 times its background rate. A study by Eisenhower and colleagues finds that in 2019, it may be even worse for invertebrates. The reason why I'll be exploring this topic is that invertebrates are underrepresented in data, practice, and regulation. Within our case study, invertebrates are barely mentioned, and only in the case that they are a food source for another species. Even in this image, we see that invertebrates are neglected. So principal threats to invertebrates: habitat loss, habitat fragmentation, and degradation. 75% of all ice-free land has been altered by humans, and 2/3 of that land has had native vegetation completely changed. Habitat degradation can be caused by loss of vegetation, soil disruption, and use of pesticides. Other threats include the fact that the public is generally unaware and overlooks the impact of invertebrates on ecosystems. Exploring the psychological aspect of invertebrate conservation, the fact that invertebrates are generally small makes it harder for us to observe their behavior. It's harder for us to relate to them, and that they look much more different than us than, let's say, like a large mammal. And our lack of understanding and knowledge of them is also the cause of our little appreciation and assigning of value to them, which is in turn needed for conservation. We also associate invertebrates with harm, such as disease, with mosquitoes, stings, and bites. And this is partly due to our lifestyle change. We're getting less and less connected with nature. We're getting further from it. And along with that, we see a change in ideology. We used to be more community-oriented and have more environmentally friendly lifestyles. And today, there's been a shift towards more materialism and personal gain, with capitalism that often acts contradictory to the environment's needs. And the last point I want to touch on is different species experience very different realities in conservation for invertebrates. Bees and monarch butterflies, species that are considered beautiful and are more charismatic, and we widely know what role they play and how they help us, experience a very different reality than, let's say, like a cockroach that is seen as ugly, even though they also play an important role in the environment. I'll be exploring two different types of invertebrates: soil-dwelling invertebrates and pollinators, even though there are other kinds as well. So soil-dwelling invertebrates, many are nutrient cyclers, meaning they decompose natural material, which in turn helps the soil health. And without good soil health, we find that agriculture fails. Pollinators are also vital to agriculture, and many crops would also fail without pollinators, but I'll dive into this more later. The last point I wanted to make is that invertebrates are a primary food source for many vertebrates, such as fish, birds, amphibians, and others. The project is placed on high-quality shrub steppe habitat, and this is significant because shrub steppe in Washington has been depleted and degraded to the extent that there's only 20% of the original high-quality shrub steppe left. While only 3% of the land will be completely changed, much more will be covered by panels, and large plots will be crushed. While some may regrow, species such as invertebrates and others will be affected by changes in microclimates. Multiple professionals criticize Schnebly-Cooley Solar Energy LLC for placing the project on high-quality habitat and near a critical area for elk migration. They point out that there's other areas where land has been depleted nearby. The western bumblebee inhabits various habitats, such as shrublands, grasslands, artificial environments, urban, and rural areas. They are dependent on rich floral environments and primarily nest underground. Within the Pacific Northwest, a study found that the occupancy of the western bumblebee has declined by 93%. So exploring how we rely on bees. The western bumblebee is one of two species that are most commonly used for American agriculture. They are vital. Estimates find that they contribute $15 billion to the U.S. economy and $300 billion globally. Many crops would outright fail without pollinators. As illustrated by agriculture, pollinators are critical for many plants to reproduce. Looking at the trophic cascade, we see that energy generally flows upwards, but in the case of the bee, they actually help the producers, which are the basis for the energy transfer throughout ecosystems. So exploring threats to bumblebees at Chenebly Cooley and for other invertebrates as well. So the main threat to western bumblebees is actually the spread of disease by bees that are used for agriculture. And however, if we look at the development of the solar farm, there will also be habitat degradation during the construction process and the crushing and destruction of vegetation and flowers. While some vegetation may grow back, if it is even possibly to be fully restored, many doubt that, including professional Susan Kaspari. It'll take a long time. This will affect the food supply of bees and other invertebrates, the ecosystem, and also their nests. They potentially could be crushed and killed during the process of construction. Additionally, solar panels will impact microclimates, as I've mentioned briefly, which could impact in vegetation and also cause these slight changes in temperature and water runoff that many invertebrates are very sensitive to. So what can we do? Looking forward, we need to increase our understanding of invertebrates. We need to tackle this by learning and rebuilding about nature and connecting with nature. Furthermore, it's important that we challenge negative and insignificant narratives about invertebrates. Can we personally take small steps like replanting native flowers, a proposed mitigation strategy at Chenebly Cooley, and bridge the common divide between environmental awareness and concrete action? Alternatively, we need to fix the current power structures in place for conservation. There's little private companies are forced to do. Taking steps forward involves putting more power in conservation agencies' hands and raising passions in the court of public opinion in order to influence local government. Thank you.